Welcome back to DUBBZI Bricks for another episode of building the Tantive IV in Lego. In the last update, I worked on the rear engine mounts just here and really happy to have them finally all built up and ready for the tiling and the greebling stage that will be coming up on there. Now, in regards to the engine mounts, this one here is a little bit higher at the moment. It's purely I haven't pushed it into the hole properly. Somebody did comment last update saying that they thought one of them, or the inner ones, weren't the same angle as the other ones. They are exactly the same angle, as I've used the same wedge pieces which they are resting on. The centre two are higher and the bottom two are lower than the outer ones, as that's what is showing on the blueprints that I'm using. So that's how I've decided upon that. Now in this update, I'm going to be working on the cylinder part of the engine. I want to get this all prototyped, get a final design on it, as this is the second version that I've come up with, and then I'll know which pieces I need to order in from Lego. I'm also going to be going up to the Lego store again tomorrow, hopefully, and that will be just to get a few parts that I've got very, very low on, and hopefully be able to get the rest of those. So without further ado, let's take this over to the table. Let's start working out how we're going to build the engines. So here we have 3 engines for the Tantive V, and this is the latest prototype that we'd come up with, which I'm relatively happy with. There are a couple of parts on it that need to be tweaked, such as the box on the side needs to come out just a fraction more. This one here was enabling me to use the 4 wide plates, 4 wide tiles. So it would have been a lot cheaper to have done it that way. However, it just didn't look as good, so I wasn't happy with it, which is why I've gone for this version here. And I think these curved slopes work perfectly for that size cylinder. So this is what we're going to be, these are the parts we are going to be using, despite the fact they're going to cost us several €100 to get all those parts in. I am going to try and work out how many I need for each engine in this update, because I do, as I mentioned before, need to order the parts in as quickly as possible. Now, I did place an order with lego.com a couple of days ago, and I did order a couple of hundred more of the slopes. Had some donations come through, and so I thought that's perfect. We'll get those all ordered straight away, but yeah, we will continue to add to them. So without further ado, let's just work out the exact measurements of the engine, as this part here is just a little bit narrow at the moment, and then we'll see if we can make an improvement on this engine here. So I've worked out the sizing of this, and this needs to be 2 studs wider at the moment. So we're going to extend these flat bits here to 4 studs on both sides. And on this part here needs to be about 17 studs. But I'm thinking what I could possibly do is if I tuck it in underneath this plate here and on top of the bottom one with a tile on there, then I can just plate over it and it's going to work out exactly right. So I think this is going to be absolutely spot on. So let's start knocking up the new framework, and I'll check back in once I made a little bit of progress. And here we have the start of the structural side of the engine, and the core part of this is very, very similar to before, and it is really difficult to change things on here. You're really manipulating the brick more than you should do, I believe. One of the reasons I would never do instructions for something like this is because people will be struggling to put the bricks together by following them, because you'll be hitting a stud. You really have to force in there. I have tried to change a couple of pieces over. Previously, I was using a Technic pin, which had an axle on the other side, whereas now I'm using a 4-long axle going all the way through, and then putting the pins on the end to keep it all in place. But with this, I've tried to get as many snot bricks on the side here as possible to then be able to plate over the top of it. And we've got studs going in both directions here. So we've got studs on the top here, or on the bottom here, should I say, and then we've got them also on the top. That's going to enable me to tile on both the top and bottom, so it's going to be a smoother finish, but I'll also be able to add more detailed greebling should I wish to do so. I'm hoping I've got the right size on here. This beam going across here, that's just to help prevent the engine from sagging. I find that when you put plates going that way, as well as obviously you've got the studs going up, so you've got the studs pointing this way and up, it does tend to stop that from happening quite a lot. It's worked on the other engine designs that I've been experimenting with, so we're happy to continue with this. Now what I need to do is start working on the white part of the box here. So I need to build a brick wall along this section in here, and then once I've done that, then what I'll do is I'll turn my attention to plating off the sides and getting that all covered as best I can. But at the moment, this is feeling really sturdy. It's a little bit on the heavy side, but no heavier than the previous version, I don't think. I could possibly lose a couple of the plates that are in here, but I'm just trying to make sure I get as much strength as possible into this, just so that when I'm manhandling it, trying to put the mock together at conventions, that there isn't much chance of it breaking. I don't think the few grams that we would save on each engine is really going to make that much difference. And here we have one side all covered over, and once I put a row of tiles on here, it'll be dead flush with the plates on here. But I can leave studs exposed, and that way I can build over the top and also attach the engine to the engine mount as a nice strong connection. But what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to make sure that this does line up properly with the engine mount. I should have checked it sooner, because if there is a mistake, then I may have to do some rebuilding of the snot bricks inside here just to raise it up or down by a plate. So let's take it over and see if it lines up. So I've just tried mounting the engine onto the engine mount, and there is an error, which has turned out to be brilliant. So I'm just going to show you what it is. So if we slide the engine in the correct way up, it goes in and it is sagging. So at the moment, if we bring you around here, you can see there's a very slight gap at the very top just there. The other problem with it being like this is it doesn't line up properly. So we've got the brick just on here, and if I put this brick here, and as you can see, we are a fraction out on there, and it looks like it's about one plate. So I thought I would just turn the build upside down just to see if what happens if I put it up the other way. And this has worked out absolutely perfectly. So now when I slide the engine in upside down, there's less sag on there to start with, but also I can put the brick on there, and it all lines up perfectly. So this has worked out absolutely fine. So I'm just going to continue to build all of these upside down. It doesn't make any difference because you've got the studs on both the top and the bottom, so it has worked out perfectly. And by connecting these two together, it's stopping the engine from sagging down that way as well, which works out really well. What I can now do is I will tile off the majority of this, with the exception of the greebling bits that go on the front here, and I'll leave studs connected, or leave some studs exposed, and then that'll be how we attach the grey panel that goes over the back, the actual engine part just here. So yeah, a mistake with the build up there, and miscalculated it by one plate, has actually worked out better, as there's a little bit less sagging on there for whatever reason. But now we know that this part is all good, we can now work on the actual cylinder bit that goes on the end. And the latest design's not going to work, unfortunately. This boxy bit here is preventing me from bringing the curve round enough. I was considering just tiling straight up to that. However, it's nowhere near screen accurate. And even this wouldn't have looked as screen accurate as it could do. I realistically need this row of curved slopes on there as well. Had I been able to get away with tiling that, I would have saved 48 slopes per engine. Instead, because I've got to go down to this level, I'm going to be putting on an additional 48 per engine. So, yeah, it's a little bit annoying, but, you know, these things happen. But what we're going to do now is just make the necessary amendments to this section here. It's just a case of stripping off the snot bricks on the top there and a row of plates maybe. Find out exactly how big a part we need on there. And from my reckoning, it's probably going to be about here to here. So it'll be, yeah, I'll probably insert another snot brick just there. That'll work. As opposed to the brick, and then we'll have plenty of connection points on there, and then we'll be able to get that all sorted. But frustrating that we couldn't save the curved tiles, but I want this to look as accurate as possible. I thought I'd just show you the inside of the engine before I finish tiling it all off. And one of the problems, or one of the things I was worried about, was the side bit falling off due to the weight when I'm removing the panel from the side once it's to remove the engine from the actual build. So what I've done is I put a snot brick in here, same the other side, and then plated in between the two. That's then helping to keep this in place, so this isn't coming off. So hopefully that will stop the side from coming off as well. But it's amazing me how quickly I'm getting through these curved slopes. I thought I had enough to do 2 whole engines, but I've just remembered that I've used a whole load of these on other parts of the Tantive V, so I'm going to have to hurry up and get a load more of these in. I did order 220 the other day, but that's not going to go anywhere when you're using as many as I'm using on this build. I'm actually borrowing them, or stealing them from the other engine there. I'm trying to keep as much of one side of the engine together as possible, just so I can compare the 2 builds side by side at the end of the update. But anyway, let's get back to covering the hull up on this side of the engine, then we can work on the flat section that goes on as well. And we're slowly but surely making progress with the engine here. This design is going to look really good when it's all done, but I just need to make a further tweak to the actual engine. Now, height wise, is perfect. So I've got the engine upside down again. That's the way that it needs to be, just to get that half plate difference or plate difference. And if I push this up, I can connect the brick there, and that's going to stop the engine from sagging. I will also be able to attach it on the top as well. That will give it an additional layer of strength as well to stop it from happening. So that's all good. The problem that I've got at the moment though is this plate here is half a stud out to this at the front, and that's so frustrating. So what it means I've got to do is I've got to amend this section just here. Now at the moment I'm using the snot brick to get that half stud. All I need to use is a bracket instead. So yeah, a little bit annoying because I would like to have had this as all one continuous panel, but we're going to have two separate ones. So this will be on the back using the snot bricks, and this one will be at the front using the panels. But I can't see any other way of getting around it. So yeah, now back to the table, strip this back down, amend that end of the build, and then we can finally get the two sections together and start working out about the section that goes on the side. And this has proved to be a little bit more of a challenge than I thought, but we have come up with a solution. Originally, I thought it was just a case of replacing the snot brick in there with a bracket. The bracket has got a half plate thickness on there, so I thought that's perfect. That's what we need to do to get this at the right level that we need to. So I thought we'd just stick a couple of these panels on here, just so we've got multiple connection points for the next stage of building this out. Then what I was going to do was grab one of these pieces here and attach the bracket to that. And I thought that's going to give me the half plate that I'm after. But that doesn't actually work out. It's when you attach the two together, because you've got the height of a brick here, that gives you half plate. Then the other half plate basically makes it exactly the same as before. We've gained nothing. So what I actually need to do now is attach a snot brick to this modified plate here. Then that is giving me the half plate. So all I need to do is attach a load of these along here, and then that way I can then have the half plate difference I need, and I can plate across there, and everything should, in theory, line up perfectly. So I'm just going to do that now. Then we'll take this back over to the model and see if it works. And it's taken a while, but we finally have success. Everything's lined up perfectly and it's working. So that's all good. With this, I had to make sure the snot bricks were in the exact right place, as they needed to make sure they lined up this way as well. So the studs were there. Originally, I just put them on there for, wait a minute, it's not going to line up. So yeah, that's easily solved. Now what I need to do is work out what I do next with this particular part. Now, I was thinking about putting a white plate over this and a brick behind it so it covers up all the holes. But I'm just wondering whether or not to just make the grey panel that's going to go across here and just attach the white brick behind it. Then the grey panel attaches to that. I think that's probably going to be the easiest way of attaching and detaching the engine and that panel when we take this to the convention. So let's start working out how we're going to go about doing that grey bit that's going to be going on there. My concern at the moment is how I make the semicircle bit at the very end, because there's no curve piece I've got in my collection that's going to be at the right size. So we're going to have to come up with something creative for that part. And now it's the moment of truth, finding out whether or not this all works. And we just need to check that everything does line up properly. So it is looking good. And stud-wise, it's all in height. So it's now just a case of trying to get it all connected together. Now, there will be a lot of details added to this panel eventually, but I just wanted, at the moment, it's just prototyping to try and get everything together. So that's attached to the front section, and attach that to the engine, like so. And there we have it. So yeah, that's how the design is going to be on there. We put some bricks in behind here so you can't see the gap on there, and I will be adding a little bit more detail on the top of here as well. Not sure how wide to make this. Bear in mind there's going to be tiles on here and then all the greebling details as well. I think that should be sufficient. It's so satisfying seeing this engine like this. It's so much better, I think, than the original version that we had. But yeah, at least we now know what parts we need to order. So I now need to just quickly have a look at the inside of this again. So we strip the panels off, make a note of what plates we need, because I know, like the 3x2 plate, for example, and the 6x2 plate, I was searching for those high and lows. I know that I'm going to need several hundred of those. I can now also calculate how many of the curved slopes I'm going to need for the entire build, and then we'll be able to get all of those parts ordered in from lego.com. I was wondering about whether or not there were any places where I could get away with not having the curved tiles, and I think one place I could possibly do it is down on this section just here. I could do that on all hinges, and I think that wouldn't be noticeable, and I could possibly even get away with it on this section just here, but I need to make sure that if I do that, that it's not it doesn't take anything away from the actual build itself. On the top, there are going to be numerous ones where I need to put some greebling, so I'm going to need to attach stuff to this. So that's going to be a couple here and there that are going to be taken out of the equation. So I need to have a good look through the sketch, and then I can get my final calculations of how many I need to get away with. But what I will do, I said I will change a couple of those over for normal tiles. The other thing I could do is use the too long, or it's a curved slope, it's only 2 by 2. That might be a way of getting the cost down on it as well, because as I said, when you get into this bit here, there's going to be so much greebling going on that you're not really going to notice it, and we might be able to save a few euro that way round without it being a detriment to the look of the build. But that was quite the challenge, getting that prototyping all done, and I thought it was going to be quite simple going by the fact we had this one here made up, but it ended up being a lot harder than I was expecting. But hey, these things happen, but we got there eventually. Now, the one other thing I do need to work out is how I'm going to be doing the end section on here. That was one part that I was hoping that I was going to be getting sorted in this update. However, I've just run out of time. It's 1 o'clock now, and I need to get to bed ready for the trip to Dublin tomorrow. So we'll reconvene with doing this part on Sunday. And we'll also do all the experimenting we need to do on this bit, just to see if we can lose any of those curved tiles. And then once I've worked out exactly how many of those I'm going to need, then I can get that order placed, so we can get all of that in and then really crack on and get those 11 engines all made up. The other part I need to work out how many I need of are the wedge plates here in white, the 3 by 2s. Once I've got those all done, I can tile around the rest of it and then put all the details on there. Anyway, that's all we have time for. Hope you've enjoyed the update. If you have, please remember to give us a big thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future content on the channel. And if you know anybody else you think would be interested in building the Tantive in Lego, if you know anybody else you think would be interested in building the Tantive in Lego, if you could share the channel with them, it'd be much appreciated. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Till next time, bye for now.